Okay, so it's 34 days to election. This is a rant of a concerned Ghanaian. I think that for purposes of getting to an election, I've been watching closely. I've been listening. I've been having conversations with a lot of young people, and as a Ghanaian, I'm very concerned. So there's an attempt to sort of rationalize what is going on and to seek to understand what the election means for us. For many of us, it's just elections, and it doesn't matter how rationally people have a conversation about election, it's still going to be an election for us. For many people, it's actually a question of emotional decision making. The more I have conversations with people, I realize that for many people, they'll make their decisions based on what their likely gain is. So for some, whether or not it's party A or party B, they'll vehemently fight anybody who seeks to make sense because their livelihood is at stake. And for some people, this election is about money. It's really about their livelihood. If you're an MP, or you're a minister, or you're a DC, or you're a CEO, it doesn't matter how much your party sucks or how worse your party is. You still support your party because it makes sense. It's livelihood, and so it makes sense for both sides. If you're making money or the political patronage is your livelihood, then it really doesn't matter whether your party is good or not. Your party must be entrenched because you make money and your livelihood depends on it. So for those people who are vehemently campaigning and insulting and doing everything because their party must come to power because of their own livelihood, I understand. And these series of videos are not for you. Do what you must. There's a second category of people who it may not be their livelihood directly, but it is a proximity to power. So my father may be the MP, my father may be the minister, in which case if I support that is my reading of proximity to power. So policies do not matter. What matters is I know somebody in this party who will come to power, and because of our corrupt nature of our system, it doesn't matter merit. I just have somebody in power. So for you as well, this series of videos is not for you. The conversations I'm intending to have is more for the people whose livelihood does not directly depend on the parties, and for whom necessarily is not a question of proximity to power, but people who are more emotional anchor. For many people, it's simply because your party is in power. And I'll tell you a story. I think 2020 elections, after the results were declared, I was driving and there was a lady selling on the street, and the way she was jubilating that her party had won, although at the time it didn't make a lot of difference to me whether somebody jubilated or otherwise, but over the years I've had to think, why does somebody who is hustling in the middle of the street and probably doesn't make 50 cedis a day, why do they take so much pride in a sense of partisanship, in a way that it does not matter whether their party is doing the right thing or not? For them, it's just like football. They must win and their party must win. I know that for many people, the things we're seeking to say will be book long, and that's fine too. But so you're Ghanaian and you're caught in this web. This election means a lot more to a lot more people and to the future of our country, more than a certain sense of partisanship and affinity to parties. I think that Mredru say a dream beyond my party near and a certain emotional affinity, and ask ourselves the hard questions. You know, it's interesting that George Washington in the 1700s, just before an election, he spent a greater part of his election campaign buying alcohol for people, and he did win the elections, right? Now, the real question and the real conversation is that in 1700, people were convinced enough by alcohol in the United States. Of course, their democracy has progressed a lot more beyond that. But for many people, in our part of the world, we saw stories of weed in the jusso during the by-election and things. So for many people, we're still caught 300 years behind civilized and democratized institutions. In those years where universal adult suffrage was a conversation, the real point was not everybody voted. It was the white male who had property, who had access to vote, because the baseline of election assumes that Obiawa, Jaya, Sebi, they will make a decision on behalf of the nation, but we know that not to be exactly true. So hopefully we're able to help you analyze. So what we'll be seeking to do is to try and share what policies on both sides of the aisle, MPP and DC, that we think whoever wins the election must consolidate to build a better Ghana. But we'll also highlight in our humble view what we think the pros and cons of voting for MPP is and voting for NDC is. And so in this journey, we're seeking to be active citizens in this campaign. You know, for many people, if I say something and it's not for your party, you jump on and insult and criticize. But that's the point. Because the politicians are careful to exclude people who have voices, we've all kept quiet, and some of the politicians whom we all sat in the classrooms with, whom we all know their thinking part, some of which are not exactly better than the next person, tell us what policy should be and tell us what the nation should be, and we're expected to keep quiet. So I'm actively going to have a voice, and I'm hoping that it will help give you some direction. So let's do this together. Ghana is ours to save. I honestly hope that whether you vote MPP or NDC, you vote based on some reason rather than simply because of an emotional affinity to the parties. May God bless our homeland, Ghana. See you.